Hello and good afternoon on this eventful Monday. And it seems that there seems to be a bit of a trend, and we're getting developments later in the days when it comes to the pick 13 fiasco leading into the Houston trade. And literally 15, 20 minutes ago, we get a significant tweet of importance from Tom Morris. It reads, "Here we go. We have movement. The Port Pies Gold Coast deal is taking shape. And there's a new player involved in this conversation. Negotiations ongoing, but Rory Atkins, who is contracted for one more year at Gold Coast, looks as if he's heading to Port Adelaide as part of the three-way trade. Every chance Port receives 3 players and at least pick 13, 29, and a future third as part of the wider arrangement, which is still being finalised. It would pave the way for the Collingwood and Gold Coast negotiations to then facilitate the Dan Houston negotiations." And by many reports in the journo world today, there is a chance that these, at least the first domino, stumbles today, and we see some movements in that trade negotiation. And I just want to say, these journos, where is their integrity? Where is their punctuality amidst all of this? All the innuendo, trying to grab headlines. Yesterday, Carlton were back in the conversation. It seemed like this morning, guys, North Melbourne were front runners for pick 13. And now we're in this merry-go-round. Our emotions are being toyed with. And I got to say, this is, like I said, I haven't followed the trade window this thoroughly in my life. So I'm learning the cycle, and it is quite cyclical, clearly. And it's, I guess, just a way for media departments to improve their viewings. But it is a pain in the ass trying to scour through what they're saying and trying to read between the lines. Even the list management has been confusing at times. Take, for example, Carlton. They've got pick 12 and 14. They want to go to the draft. And then we're hearing from external sources, which is important to note, that they're still in the hunt for Houston if we fall short. And then you hear Gold Coast, their list management team, saying, hey, we want players, not picks. That's why we're going for John Noble. And then you hear them shopping around to the Hawks, who have offered a future first and a future second for pick 13. You hear the Bulldogs are in it. You hear Carlton is supposed to be in it. And then it seems like we were just falling further and further down the pecking order. But with Tom Morris coming out with that massive news, faith has been restored. And hey, if I could do myself a favor, I'd just turn off the news for 10 days, trust what we're trying to do, and appreciate the leverage we do have in this negotiation, and then turn it back on after 10 days about, all right, did it happen or not? Because this is a fucking roller coaster. It's a shit stain. And I hate to take you guys through it, but it's my role in this to make sure we're all up to date with all the developments. So bear with us. We're trying to work through this undesirable situation. And I'm going to have Twitter fingers throughout this whole stream, just constantly refreshing and checking what on earth is going on regarding this whole situation. So let me see here if there's anything else here. Any other updates? There was a news article posted by John Ralph, which I might care to share with you guys. See if it's here. Nothing here. But John Ralph goes on to say, where is it? Come on. John Ralph, where are you? There is still, this was 8 minutes ago. There is still fine-tuning involved, but it would now surprise people if Houston didn't get to the Pies. The deal is on track. Powell will get 13 and 29 and Lukosius. Suns get Pies and Port future first rounders as well as Noble. So it seems like we're settling for pick 29 and we send the future first to get pick 13 and they get John Noble for pick 29, the Gold Coast Suns. So it's messy, without a doubt, guys. It is certainly messy. Rory Atkins is an interesting one. Why that has piqued Port Adelaide's interest, the fact that he's been out of favour at Gold Coast for the longest time. I don't know what the rationale is behind that. But it will help get Gold Coast, it will help get Rory Atkins off their list. Let's have a look at some comments and then we'll share some videos because there's been a heap of bites from the media that we would like to unpack today. Manny's here. Team Mello's here. Yeah, we do need to be patient, Andreas. It's just it's a shit show, isn't it? Graham Wright is an interesting one. Like there was talks. Okay, well Graham Wright's in the hot seat at Carlton now, and he could snag Dan Houston away from us. So, Dylan, I'm good, mate. How are you? I'm very good. Houston deal looking likely. I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it. Here we go. Brandon, I'm good. How are you? Adam, I'm good. I'm feeling good after that news. Chris, how you doing? So with these edits, Carlton are getting a top 10 pick. They're trying to move up the draft rankings in the sense that they got pick 12 and pick 14. So it's likely they're going to try and bundle that to clubs who have a better draft hand, and they're going to try and get in the top 10 that way. And that is not to get Dan Houston. That's to, I guess, inject youth into their side in what is a deep draft this year. Thank you, Rory Atkins. I genuinely think, like, irregardless of what North put on the table for Houston, I still think Port would rather keep Houston in that case, and Houston would probably rather stay at Port Adelaide if that's the case. It's something to work through, isn't it? Brandon, no problems, mate. It's what we're here to do. Yeah, journos are shocking. They're shocking, but what do you do? 0 chance Houston goes to North. If it's North or bust, he'll stay at Port. It's not like he's unhappy there. He's just trying to get to Melbourne if the deal lands at the right club. We'll need a miracle to get Houston, but I still believe that we can get him. It's like the Real Madrid versus City odds in 2022 UCL. I reckon. I think we're all right. Can't wait for Noble to get to Gold Coast. Yeah, got to trust the club. We do have to trust the club, but yeah, interesting. Anthony, you don't have to swear, mate. Sorry, Yorgos. I'm okay, thanks. I'm a Carlton supporter. Terry and Pommy are goats in the community. Now, they're awesome. Love chatting to them. They're great blokes. Carlton only have 2 top 5 picks on their list. Interesting. Ooh, we have Pendlebury. We have Nick Dacos. We have Darcy Moore. Who else do we have? Laughing Magpie. Rob, we are hearing that we are once again, and probably always have been, but because the media like to misconstrue information and run with it because it benefits their ratings, we are looking likely to get Dan Houston over the line. But we'll be constantly checking the media sources throughout this stream to make sure we don't miss anything. So for the next hour, we're keeping an eye on just refreshing. Yeah, they want, Sullivan. So, yeah. All right, let's have a look at some stuff that we have heard from the media today. Let's start with this one.
Clubs need to be allowed to trade players with.
So this is Buckley's view on the power or lack of power that clubs have when it comes to trading players and contract negotiation. So we'll just touch on it and see what everybody else thinks in here.
Without their consent. And I think there needs to be, and because at the moment, players have too much of a whip hand. Clubs are now they're going down these long-term contracts, and they're doing it to try and, I suppose, prevent their players being poached. But it doesn't stop that when the players choose to leave anyway with 3, 4 or 5 years left on their contract, or the club or a club wants to move a player on with 3, 4, 5 years left in their contract. Why don't we just be big boys and say, okay, if you sign a contract with us for a certain period of time, the AFL is going to honour that contract. The AFL industry is going to honour that contract. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be with us. It might be with another club, and the other club needs to pick up that contract. So I think that's the way it's worked in the NFL. Let me finish. So say it was 150% of average wage. So you can only do it if a player is 150% above the average wage. So if it's 400 grand is your average wage, well, you need to be at 600 and above to be put in this category of being traded without your consent. It doesn't really matter about how many years, but you know what this will do is clubs won't commit 6, 7, 8 years with a player. You'll just sign a 3 or 4 or 5, and you'll actually go hunting to market a little bit more. We'll see far more player movement. It'll control the inflationary impact of long-term contracts, because we're seeing massive inflation in player wages because of this. It'll make the players more accountable for their professional output year by year, and I think that's a win. You don't ever want anyone to get comfortable and safe on a 6 or a 7 year deal and think they have a quiet year or two because they're not as concerned about their economic situation. I think it's always good to have you want enough security, but you also want some rigor. So your professional output is going to be required week in, week out, year in, year out. And
So this is interesting, and I actually agree with Buckley's take, and it's very similar in the NBA, where you can be moved at the volition of the club, and I like this because it does bring a sense or an element of players needing to or wanting to perform on a consistent basis. Once these players get their big bag, they're quite rather settled financially, and to have that significant amount of job security might actually hinder, or does in some cases hinder, these player performances, because it's a known fact. If you are broke and trying to make it in life, you have a massive chip on your shoulder relative to someone who wakes up, not to quote Conor McGregor, who says it's hard to get up out of bed when you sleep in silk pajamas or something like that. So that's what I like about Nathan Buckley's lens from that conversation. Players are just getting these long contracts. Let's refer to Harry Perryman because that pertains to Collingwood. He gets a long contract. He's getting $900K a year. Call it the norm these days, but the power is in players' hands. And guys, the reason why this is a big issue is because the club, the players are not bigger than the club, right? So when you invest in these players and have to offer big contracts because other clubs are doing the exact same thing, so you, by default, because of the default nature of what's happening, you have to offer long contracts. Otherwise, they're just going to go somewhere else, right? And yeah, that's my case. I think that's where I was going with that, right? So give players a little less job security to look after the betterment of the club. No player is bigger than the club. And if this Perryman contract turns to shit, it just becomes another burden on Collingwood's salary. And you can say, well, Collingwood shouldn't have gone for Perryman, but I have to argue that the inherent nature of getting a big contract can sometimes affect the psyche of players, and they're a little bit more complacent and comfortable with being an okay player. And hey, guess what? If you're an okay player on a big salary, you don't have to pay for that necessarily. You will go to another club. Collingwood will have to salary dump and pay a portion of X player's contract, and we move on. That's my concern with that. What do we all think about that? Let's see. Yeah, Joe Richards will still be on to Port Adam. Yeah, agree with it, but can't be any player, but yeah, needs to be above for the above average earners. 3-year contracts, max 30% of players tradable every season. Stephanos, how you going? Players don't earn enough to be shipped around like cattle. They're not earning millions like NBA players. I guess it's still all relative, Peter. Like the salary cap is the salary cap in Australia. So just because they're not earning millions and millions doesn't mean we shouldn't apply the same methods of practice, because we're trying to uphold principles that are important to the longevity of clubs, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that they're not earning 30, 40 million a year. Adelaide gave some massive contracts and they didn't perform all that well. Appreciate all your streams and commentary during the trade period. No clickbait like we get from mainstream media. Straight to the point and unbiased, even though it's Pies focused. I do try. I appreciate the kind words, Kirkish. Look, it's just all I'm doing, guys, is I'm reporting what the journos are saying, and they're supposed to be reputable sources. And then I just want to share my thoughts on it, and I want to get your thoughts back. I'm not here to pretend that I know something's going to happen today or 3 days in advance. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. We don't know nothing, and it's clear. Like, we look at the news, we think we know this, we think we know that. We listen to list management. Collingwood say, Fly comes out and says, to a certain extent, we want players, not picks. And then now Justin Lepich is saying last week, we want to balance the future and the now. If we don't get Houston, we will have to go down a different route and look at younger players, a la Dev Robertson from Brisbane. But it seems like our, I guess, plan of action is dependent on what happens in the next few days, right? If we can get Houston, we're in the now. We're in the now, and that's it. If we don't get Houston, then we can get Dev Robertson and anything else. Guys, also, remember how I spoke about Denver Granger Barras being a good option for Collingwood as a budding key position player, former top 10 pick in the draft? He is likely to be picked up as a delisted free agent by Carlton. And that saddens me, because I was so big on Denver Granger Barras coming to Collingwood. I think he has a lot to offer. I think Collingwood have missed on this one. They really have. Does it push out your Lewis Youngs? Maybe, but there's no interest in Lewis Young for any club, by any club. Caleb Marchbank, who was delisted, we haven't heard about that either. So we'll probably see developments later, Tuesday, Wednesday, regarding Tomlinson. It seems like almost a sure thing. I say that now. Tomorrow he signs on at Melbourne. So that's the nature of it, right? Woody says you can add no trade clauses or player-approved trade clauses if you wanted to. I do think there would need to be more transparency about player salaries, though. It would be nice. That's a really good point, Woody. Another issue with the AFL, and you only have to look at the NBA and these other places where they actually do disclose a salary. It offers a level of transparency of what they're earning, therefore being able to estimate what they could be worth moving forward, and vice versa, right? That helps the media, that helps us, that helps other clubs. We know what they're earning. It probably should be public information, given how public this realm is. Gives us transparency and clarity. And that's all we're asking for, right? And that would stop all this manipulation in the media. We've seen it, guys. We've seen journos are saying he's worth this much and he's worth that much. And then clubs assume that, and then it skews the whole conversation and typically works in the player's favor. They might nudge Tom Morris and say, hey, say Harry Perriman is worth 900K, and then Collingwood won't nudge and they'll accept that. They'll submit to that. There you go. If we get Houston, he should stay for another 6 to 8 years. He'll be a Collingwood player for at least 6 years. It also depends on the player's professionalism. I don't know how you believe Tom Morris. His story changes every 2 days. You're telling me. Not yet, but we're close. We're close. Yeah, we're close. That's all I can say. Based on what is streaming around in the media world is this is close to taking fruition. And all I care about is not when, it's just, okay, now we know we've been, it's reaffirmed that we are in the front seat still. And we've been saying that across the last 7 days, but you just don't know until you know. That's what I'm trying to say. Went with the gut. I think we should go for a key forward. Any news surrounding key forwards? Well, based on the recent news today, it doesn't seem like we're going for Ollie Lord. Otherwise, he would be certainly involved in this three-way trade. It sounds like with Jack Hayes having the medical at Collingwood from St Kilda, he will probably be at the Collingwood Football Club. It doesn't look like, guys, if we get Houston, it doesn't look like we're going to have picks in the 20s to get someone in the draft, unfortunately. Are we robbing Peter to pay Paul? I don't know. Richmond got so many picks. They can build a new team getting established players instead of going to draft and taking a risk on his kids. Bailey Smith, Clayton Oliver. They could, but I think they're doubling down with the exodus of Baker, Bolton, Rioli. It seems like they're just going to go to the draft and just go for a hard reset. Noble to Gold Coast is a great choice for them. Having Johnny to transition through that corridor, banging inside 50 to the big forward 50 targets, looking to see how he fits in if he gets traded. It will be interesting. And if he pairs along with old mate Dan Rioli, it will be a viable tandem. If you get Houston, you're just aging your list more. You have one of the older lists. Well, if you get 6 years out of Dan Houston, I would say we can live with that, yeah? If we went for Tom Barras, who requires a future first and a future second, I'd be spewing. At age 29, hasn't played a full season in his career. That one would be harder to swallow. That'd be a harder pill to swallow. Do you think we will get Houston and not Carlton? Yes, I think Collingwood will. Membership prices are advertised. Why aren't players' salaries advertised? Interesting one. I don't know if that's exactly a fair analogy, or a fair comparison. People keep assuming Carlton isn't because Nick Alston is smart. He hasn't come out like Justin Lepage. Nick said we're going to draft. He's keeping his cards close to his chest, not saying his plan. Maybe, but it does all along. It seemed like Nick Austin and Carlton have made it clear that they're going for the draft, in my opinion. Kev, how you going, mate? John Raff has also mentioned this, Dusty. Sean, how you going? Jack Hayes is a very good selection. Get that Jonty Fall. He looks good. He does look good in that draft, but with this Houston trade happening, Luke, I just don't think we're going to have the cattle. We won't have the draft hand to get into the 20s where Jonty Fall will probably likely fall. We'll go for Granger Brass. Leave Dan Houston. Need tall defenders or enough runners. I wish we did go for Denver Granger Brass. I really did. Yeah, it's all happening. It's all happening. Richards will go to Port Adelaide. For Hayes and Tomlinson, so I'll pull it up here, the draft order, right? So with Tomlinson, Chris, we won't have to give up any picks because he's an uncontracted or unrestricted free agent, which means all we owe to Tomlinson in this situation is a salary, right? And that might be like $400 a year, right? Let's go here. AFL out of contract players, share. Let's go. So, as I said, just so I'll zoom in for you guys. Oh, that's the wrong one. One moment. Zoom in here. Bang, bang. Is that clear? That's clear enough, isn't it? Okay, so if we look at Melbourne, where are you? Adam Tomlinson, unrestricted free agent. So, like I said, we just owe him a contract rather than picks. And then when it comes to Jack Hayes, he is in contract. He's a non-free agent. So he's out of contract in 2025, I believe. Let me just double check. St Kilda. No, sorry. He's out of contract this year, but he still requires picks to be given up because he's a non-free agent. Yeah, here we go. So look at that. So if we look at what our picks are, let's go Google zero hanger draft order. I suspect for Jack Hayes, we will give up one of these two. Pick 52 or pick 55 for Jack Hayes. That's all I can see. That's all I can see happening, in my opinion. So we get the comments, guys. The Scout nailed it from the forum. What forum was that, Steve? Hayden, how you going? Hey, mate, are you going to be putting out much content in the off season? So that's the plan. That's the plan. This is the off season, right? We're still pumping out content. Next up will be the draft. So hopefully, if we have a pick in the 20s, which like I said, it doesn't seem like we're gonna get that in our hands, unfortunately. But I probably will either way do video analysis because I'm sure other clubs and other fans of clubs will be interested in these players. So we'll do like the annotations over videos, which I really enjoy. And irregardless of whether Collingwood are in the 20s, 30s, so on and so forth, I'll look to pump out that content as well. And before you know it, we'll be in November. Preseason will be well and truly underway. And I'll be looking to go to at least a weekly session because it's open trading and do some training reports. So let me know if you guys are interested in that. That's something that really piques my interest as well. Jake from Saints TV is in the chat. Pick 13 for Jack Hayes seems logical to me. Thoughts? ? Hey, stranger things have happened, mate. Stranger things have happened. Tell the fans what you think of Jack Hayes. The vibe we're getting, Jake, when I look at the Reddit forums speaking about Jack Hayes, is he offers a reasonable amount of potential given, I guess, his age, given his lack of consistency. There's been good signs, but it seems like the issue with fans and the club is he just can't get on the park. And they're hoping for Hayes to have a fresh start elsewhere because it's just holding up the list at St Kilda by way of just holding up a singular spot on a list. They think he's got the talent, but he just can't get on the pitch. And that's why, similar to Kruger at Collingwood, Jake, he's a good player, good role player at this point, but he can't stay on the field. So sometimes it just warrants a fresh start. You take Carlton with their word. Houston doesn't want to go to North. Imagine we do this and get Dev Robertson. I mean, to be honest, I think we'd have to either give away this, pick 36. There's no way. Surely there's no way Brisbane are letting go Dev Robertson for one of these two picks. No way. I really don't think that would happen. And to be honest, I think the Collingwood family would lose their mind if we give away pick 36 as well. What do I think about giving away pick 36 for Dev Robertson? Interesting one. Because with pick 36, you're looking at maybe Thomas Sims, who's another key position player who plays for Northern Knights and was under the tutelage of Anthony Rocker. Interesting one. What do you guys think? Let's see. All right, let's see. Let's do a little update on Twitter to see if there's anything developing. Carlton's still coming hard for West Coast picks. Pick 3 using pick 12 and 14, so we won't worry about that. So, and we know that Rory Atkins is now a part of this 3-way trade, which is crazy. Let's have a look at, let's put on another snippet from today. What about this one?
Kaleidoscope. Like to just seeing things from a
So this is Cal Twomey talking about the AFL potentially missing on not allowing clubs to trade 2 years in advance in this current trade
slightly
window.
different point of view. This shows the demand for these picks shows that the AFL erred in waiting an extra year to bring in an extra year of future picks. Not having these selections to use has cost some extraordinary offers being made, and I really think that it should have been brought in this time around. So, not to be though, but that's okay. Just a little bit of my kaleidoscope of seeing things as they unfold. But I mean, the race for 13 is a decision that the Suns will have to make separate to what's happening with Dan Houston now, because it has been wrapped up in the Dan Houston chase. Will Collingwood get it and then pass it on to Port Adelaide? Is it going to be a 3-way deal, a 4-player deal? I think Lukosius as a deal can get done separately. But all clubs are looking at these scenarios and saying, what's not the outcome of this trade, but the outcome of the trade period? So what's the actual net result at the end of it? So that's part of it. But Carlton, had looked at 13 clearly, but changed their focus to the Hawks, who were willing to do the deal. Melbourne were in for 13, but have gone elsewhere. So they've lost a couple of buys, but the clubs who are actually still in it are coming harder because it's probably the only real remaining pick really early in the draft that's up for grabs right now. West Coast 3 is in a different spot because they still want to have an early selection. This one's been traded right out because of the bid. So that's where it's a different scenario. And I think North Melbourne with a future first-round pick can get something done, but it's probably going to take something extra as well. And then is 13 from their point of view enough to get the deal done?
So there we have it there. I'm gonna open up a poll to the chat, and I want to ask you, let's see here, should have the AFL allowed trading futures 2 years in advance in this trade period? There we go. I think they should have, because, guys, I feel like, how close we were to getting Petrarca, or how I feel how close we were to getting Petrarca this trade period. If we had access to, let's say, okay, so this is the hypothetical, guys. We love hypotheticals, right? If we had access to pick, we don't have a first rounder this year. But if we had access to pick our first rounder at the end of 2025 and a first rounder in 2026, right? Say to get that third first round pick, we'd all value Christian Petrarca at 3 first rounders. We could get pick 13 from Gold Coast, and there you go. We bundle those 3 first round picks, 2 futures and 1 from this year to get Christian Petrarca over the line. I feel like we've missed the boat on that one. And God, it would offer so much more autonomy for clubs to get players we need and also trade away players for what they're truly worth when you add in that third future. So you can trade future firsts, future seconds, and future thirds in advance once this new rule is in place next trade period. So I have another question, actually. I'll let this poll cook for a second. Most people are saying yes. I'm going to end this one prematurely. I have a great question. This is an interesting one. Start a poll. This should have been the question from the start. Would you trade 3 first-round picks for Petrarca at the end of next year? I'm not going to give you my answer. I'm going to let you guys cook in the chat and tell me what you think. That would be interesting. That would definitely be an interesting discussion. Because while you guys are doing that, he's only getting older, right? This year's a different conversation. I think we'd be more open to getting a Petrarca for 3 first-round picks this year because he's simply a year younger. Once you get into next year, he's getting closer and closer to 30. It just becomes the risk versus reward is just not there, is it? It's just not quite there. Open trading, we're not sure because preseason hasn't even started. But trading is always open because it's at the AIA Vitality Center. So you could pretty much head there any day. Usually their training starts anywhere between 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and you'll catch them. You'll catch them in the flesh. That would mortgage our future. No way. Can we trust Petrarca's mentally and physically? Interesting, right? Interesting. All right. What is the next video that we can share from today? Let's remove this. Present video file. Have we shared this one yet?
Damo, that Port would prefer Dan Houston to get to North Melbourne because that is where the best.
So this is Dave. This is where like we get frustrated, right? With media journals. Like, listen to this from Damien Barrett. This is just abhorrent.
Best deal is Dan Houston at this point in time doesn't want to play for North Melbourne. He wants to play for Collingwood. It appears Carlton is out of the race, but this is going to go very deep in the trade period as well.
Yeah, it will too. And Carlton's got its own decisions to make internally. There are strong people at that footy club who want to use 12 or 14 on the Dan Houston possibility. Equally, there's others who want to take both those picks into what they know to be a really, really strong draft. I still feel he will get to Carlton. That's my take on this.
He's going to get to Carlton.
I still feel he will get to Carlton.
How's he going to get there with the picks?
I think they might budge on the 14.
So you think Carlton will give foot, but that might not be enough for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, but it might be as well.
Yeah.
Or 12.
Yeah, okay. Because Port have been strong in the fact they want 2 first-round picks or 1 pick in the top 10. Carlton can't satisfy them with either.
But when they say that they're happy for him to walk back, they've also been happy for him to have the narrative for 6 weeks that he's happy to go out. And he's not going back right now in his own mind. And I know that's the holding position publicly with his contract, but that's where it lies right now.
What about the Collingwood Football Club and where they're at? Because they've been trying to satisfy Port for the best.
Kev, love you. Kev, love you. But your opinion reeks like shit when you stand on, you have no grounds to support that case. It makes no sense. Carlton have stipulated we're going to the draft. We're trying to get pick 3. We want Finn O'Sullivan. And then Collingwood, we have Noble for pick 13. We have Joe Richards to help facilitate the Houston trade. So when Tom Morris says Collingwood are in the front position, pole position, you understand and respect that. You can understand that. But this by Damien Barrett, fuck, he's a better man if he gets this right. But how does that make any sense? There's no credence to it.
Best part of a week with Dan Houston. And I can tell you tonight, they are nowhere near being able to satisfy Port for Dan Houston. They are a long way apart to the point now where you're talking about Carlton, North Melbourne.
See, and again, this is another problem with media. Listen to Tom Morris here.
Being able to satisfy Port for Dan Houston. They are a long way apart.
Let me bring it back a bit.
Port for the best part of a week with Dan Houston. And I can tell you tonight, they are nowhere near being able to satisfy Port for Dan Houston. They are a long way apart to the point now where you're talking about Carlton. North Melbourne still believe they're in the mix for Dan Houston because Justin Leppage and the Pies are nowhere near it.
Yeah, well, let's take a listen to what...
Like... What do you do? What do you do? You hear we're a long way away from all this happening. And then today we find out that it's in the works. We're back on. It is frustrating. And the fact that it creates waves in the media scene we have to bear it. We have to bear it. Like, it's just misleading, isn't it? I love the fact the club is hunting A-graders. They're called game breakers. The draft is only there to replenish the AFL. Unless you get a bunch of early draft picks in the top 10, waste of time. Let's see. Has Tom become the most trustworthy media source? Look, out of them all, I'd have to say I probably depend on him the most. But they all have their crux. Collingwood will need to rebuild on the fly with youth after next year. Trading away picks for older players will stuff us in the long term. I've always been on the, like, if we can win a flag next year or the year after, send us into fucking capitulation for a few years. It's fine. I can live with that. You know, it's already stressful enough watching Collingwood be competitive and only win games by less than 6 points, which is the nature of the game now. I can live with that if we win a flag, right? We'll trust the process. Big Mike says Collingwood spoke to wing/halfbacker from Western Australia, Jackson Artemis, Western Australia under-19 MVP. If we don't land Houston, I think we'll follow up on him. He'll go around the 50-ish mark. All right, let me write that down. Thank you, Big Mike. So if we hold a pick in the 50s, maybe he's the man. That will be in the draft content that I will post. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yeah, that would be tough. And you also have to use 2 of your first round picks every 4 years. So you can't exactly go bananas. So there is a caveat to that, okay? Houston's a good get and young enough. No mortgaging future for players like Chuck. I agree, 100%. They know more than they do. It's funny, isn't it? It's okay, Christy. I remember you. Just don't be a prick again. If Port don't want pick 13 and Joe Richards, can we put in a future first round pick? Yeah, that's what we're doing. So we actually have to give away pick 13 and a future first as well. We have to give a future first to Gold Coast to get pick 13. So we can't offer pick 13 to Port along with a future first, if that makes sense, because we need to give that future first to Gold Coast. Yeah. Look, I don't mind. Look, speculating is one thing and then misleading is different, is another thing. But we're going to be here every day for every update that comes along. Let's see. Anything else on Twitter? Let's see. Nothing. Draft period should be maximum 5 days. Everything gets dragged out now. Incredibly boring and allows the media to run with speculation. Andreas from Black and White United thinks Cal Twomey is the trade master. He's a good man as well, isn't he? He's all right. Morris has done okay with the trade period, though. All the media at the moment is just working off of rumors, and then they try to make a story of it. Tom just seems to state whenever he has some concrete facts to work off. Media reporting misinformation, just like they said no team can win the flag 0-3. And Brisbane 0-4 as well, by the way. Go on to win the flag. That's amazing. Would you trade a Pies star for Saints pick 8 and a future first? And which star would you trade? Pick 8 and a future first. Probably not right now, because that would take away from what we're trying to achieve right now. So no, not this year. Here we go. Jack says, I've seen 2 flags in 30 years of living. So if we get another soon, let's fucking do it. Who cares? Future us problems. That's the way I see it. Let's if we can win a flag in the next couple of years and we have a bit of a down period, so be it, right? St. Kilda, perpetually failing. I'm sure if they could be in this situation where they could remain within the premiership window, they would, right? And not to say they won't be, but history suggests that St. Kilda have been short of the mark. Fremantle, since their inception, have been short of the mark. Carlton haven't been anywhere near it for the good part of 20-odd years. So here we are. We were in a grand final in 2018, win a flag in 2010, grand final 2011, prelims here and there. If we can win another flag, it's just like I would be comfortable in Richmond's position right now. I'll go as far to suggest that I'd be comfortable in Richmond's position given they've won 3 flags in 4 years. They get a bit of respite as fans. They get to see some youth recreate the narrative, recreate the story, bring in new characters into the story. I'm okay with that. Rick says, Peter Ryan reporting, Pies get 2 picks in the 50s that collapse into the 40s as well as Houston. Gold Coast get future first, Noble, Port get 13 players and pick 29. So Peter Ryan is suggesting we're going to turn those picks in the 50s into 40s. Is that right? Let's see. I'm just looking at Peter's Twitter. Not sure if I've got the right one though, eh? Never mind, I'm not going to find him. The AFL does manipulate the trade. What's been the update today? Went to movies and keeping it chill till Wednesday. Otherwise, I'll stress out. Hey, yeah, I wish I was in your position where I wasn't needing to worry about every fucking update, every update, every 5 minutes in this trade window. But it is what it is. We're looking like we're still in pole position for Houston is the main thing, as reported by Tom Morris. I wanted Lord over Houston, to be honest. I feel this is overs by far. I don't like. I'm with it. I'm with Houston on this one. It'd be nice if we could somehow get Houston as well in it. We may Lord in it as well. We may as well, right? We're already knee deep into conversations with Port. Why can't we try and snare Port Ollie Lord? But I did try and rationalize the prospect of it when the news first came out that Collingwood could be keen on Ollie Lord. I just think with Port's list right now, Mitch Georgiades still growing, Todd Marshall, injuries, concussion, Charlie Dixon retiring. Sure, Lukosius comes to Port Adelaide. I just don't think Lukosius is that guy. I think he's too slim. I think he's mentally, he's a bit frail, it seems. His intent on the game. I don't think he's a like for Ollie Lord. So that's why I think Ollie Lord would remain at Port Adelaide, because he's of his frame, potential. They've nurtured him for 4 years since drafting him in 2020. I don't think he comes to Collingwood. Manny, guys, newsflash, breaking. Manny is sick of the rebuild. It's bullshit. Every other club has been rebuilding for decades and have done sweet FA. I'm with you, mate. Dimitrios Fanaraki says, it's just speculative journalism. Port are hell-bent on Richards while they didn't walk away from Collingwood. Suns want Noble, otherwise pick 13 would have been gone. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Logic suggests that we hold the leverage in these conversations because these clubs want these players. Therefore, they will work with us. That has been what we've been hinging on as fans this whole time. And hopefully it still ends up that way. Quaynor, you reckon? Exactly. I don't think Richmond supporters are upset. I wouldn't think so either. All media are garbage. Yeah. Our club refuses to stay down for long. It's not who we are. No worries, Robbie. Have a good night, mate, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for your support. Houston is worth it. Worth it. Go hard. Yeah, I don't think Lukosius is a second key tall. And I think Ollie Lord is. And Lukosius is a third tall at best. 100% agree. Great call. Just don't think we're hearing enough about Ollie Lord right now. Greatness, I really don't think. Don't remember this many people in chat. Well done. Yeah, people love the trade window. Guys, if you're not subscribed and you like the content, be sure to do so. Also, if you want to support the channel by a monetary value, put the link in here. It's $5 a month. I've toyed with the idea of putting things behind a paywall, but I just can't do it, guys. Like, when I make content, I just want to put it out to you guys straight away. I don't want to delay anything. I want you guys to see it then and there. I'm always excited to share it with you. Hence why I'm not putting it through a paywall. Yes, that means the membership doesn't really hold much value, right? Other than you'd be supporting the channel. So if you want to do that, appreciate it. If not, your presence here is greatly appreciated. If you want to become a champ pie, it's $5 a month. Do it as you will. But I just can't, right now, I can't justify putting things behind a paywall. I don't have the patience, and I feel like I'm not giving you guys timely updates, especially during this time in the trade period, in the draft. Breaking news during the season. Why am I delaying a post by 3 hours, 6 hours, 24 hours when it's relevant then and there, and you guys deserve that. That's my logic behind it. I think throwing the sink at Houston isn't a bad plan. Him, Maynard, and Quaynor are such an elite half back line, and Darcy Moore can focus on floating a little bit more. Exactly, Button. It's interesting, isn't it, with North Melbourne trying to snare Braden Maynard, according to reports yesterday. That one was interesting. It was never going to happen, but it was. You can't knock North Melbourne for trying, right? They're looking to bring clubs that are players that are cut from a cloth that reek competition, competitive nature, bulls. Braden Maynard reeks of a bull. He stinks of competitive nature. He's got white line fever. So that's why these clubs are asking the question. You can't blame them. He's going to stay at Collingwood, but you can't blame him. He's part of the leadership team. He loves Collingwood. He bleeds black and white. He's a premiership player. He's the man. I, too, also want Lord over Hayes because Hayes gets hurt a lot. In saying that, Hayes could come to a fresh new environment. Guys, when you're injury prone, right? And I'll explain this with personal experience playing sport as well. When you're constantly injured at a club, one thing, it gives you carry this bad energy. You're always injured. People in the club are always asking, "Oh, when are you coming back? Like, what's the go?" And when you're always having these recurring injuries, you're always saying the same thing. "Hey, I'm injured. I can't do it." And then people are always worried for you, and it just becomes this really angsty type of environment. And you don't want to be in angst. You don't want players to think you're made of glass, right? That's why you make these changes and go to a fresh environment and start fresh, clean slate. That's why Jack Hayes could work out better at Collingwood than St Kilda for that reason. Nathan Kruger could move on to another club and have a better career elsewhere. Where have we seen that with players who have had nagging, recurring soft tissue injuries and they've gone to other clubs and thrived? We've seen many examples of it. Heaps of clubs have turned players around. Lincoln McCarthy from Geelong couldn't buy a game there because of his injuries. Guys, I don't know why this keeps going out of focus. I'm sorry. We have to fix that. He goes to Brisbane and hardly misses a game. Of course, unfortunate circumstances with his injury, but it is what it is. I'll be perfectly fine doing a rebuild. Love the idea of a redo. I don't know why. A redevelopment would also be good to see who the loyal supporters are. Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Can't believe Rory Atkins is the key to this lol. Funniest way to start. It is a bean cans. It is interesting what they're trying to cook up with Rory Atkins there. Kev, you streamed for 5 hours to see if we're getting Houston. That's commitment, mate. We love your commitment here, brother. Just wonder how we can conversations with Richmond. They are loaded with picks. Could offer something to get into this year's draft. Thoughts? Well, we just won't have anything to give to them, really. They won't want players. They've committed to the redevelopment of their club. And they've got a bunch of later picks as well to give clubs for academy picks. We've seen that with Brisbane already. That happened over the course of last week. They're going to want to double down. Like, they're getting picks for Baker, Rioli, Bolton. They're just going to completely stock up in the draft. Like, little things like, who is it? Who's the coach at Richmond again? It's Adam Uze, right? I think so. He removes all the memorabilia and the statues or whatever it was for Richmond's dynasty period to imply and make a statement to the existing team that, hey, we're not going to live in the past, we're moving on. And really what he's doing right now is trying to move on as quickly as possible, see these players out who don't want to be at the club, go for draft picks, completely rebuild the team. He's turning it into his own team right now. That's what he's doing. Been following you and Swoop for about 3-4 months now. Appreciate it. We're grateful and yeah, awesome. Awesome. To be fair, Braz would be perfect to bring North up, but they can't have him. They can't have him. There's no chance. He's ours. Has Sexton signed for Gold Coast? He's an unrestricted free agent and would be good for depth. I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want him. He was tried off the halfback flank for Gold Coast. Maybe, how about this, greatness? If he is an unrestricted free, if he's a delisted free agent at the end of this, then I would also entice the idea of Sexton to Collingwood. He can play forward, right? So here's the thing: if Jamie Elliott, getting a bit older, gets injured, Bobby Hill, Bo McCreary, Lockie Schultz, maybe that synergy isn't working. Sexton can come in and play a role. Experienced player, played over 200 games, has been a leading goal kicker at Gold Coast in the past, has played off the half-back line this year. If he's a delisted free agent, greatness, if he doesn't extend or sign elsewhere, I'll just double check actually before I go on a tangent. But I would certainly consider him. Alex Sexton contract. So he's contracted to the end of this year, which, yeah, he's 30 years old. Okay. Yeah, there's no talks. No talks of him being signed. So I imagine Gold Coast will probably delist him. Thanks for subbing, Drain. Appreciate it. Hayes has shown a lot of potential during the times he did. Hey, if we sign him, Ramage, I'll definitely do some video analysis so we can get a better idea of what we're going to get with Jack Hayes. See, Joe Danaher from Essendon couldn't buy a game there. Had groin issues, goes to Brisbane, fresh environment, right? He's out of the Melbourne bubble. So naturally less stressed. Yeah, let's be honest. If you're not in Melbourne playing AFL footy, in a really nice environment when it comes to the weather. No pressure, right? They wouldn't have rushed him in any way. And he finally gets the continuity. So that's my point in case with Jack Hayes coming to Collingwood and Nathan Kruger probably going somewhere else. Houston is worth it. He makes us the top 4 teams. Stick it up, Carlton. Make me laugh. Suck it, Carlton. That's the first one I thought of. Too many. Yep. I reckon whoever we draft tall fourth next year should play a fair amount of games. We can keep developing them until they burn out. The Mushroom Effect says, mate, appreciate the content you're around. The complexity is better than me. I reckon getting Houston a risk worth taking. Yeah, I think we're all on the bandwagon that Houston is the risk worth taking. Guys, 6'1", we're all talking about how much of a good ball user he is. Guys, he averaged nearly 2 intercept marks this year. That's nearly as much as Jeremy Howe. That's more than Isaac Quaynor. Like, he can do more than just kick the footy into the inside 50, and he can do more than rebound the ball. He can intercept mark the ball. So he's actually going to aid and help players like Darcy Moore. Before we get Tomlinson, before we get the Nathan Murphy replacement, we are doing Darcy Moore a favor by bringing in Dan Houston because of his intercept marking ability. I'll show you here, guys. I'll show you. It's very interesting. I didn't know this. I didn't know he was 6'1", and I didn't know that he was a intercept player. Let's have a look, and we'll measure that against Collingwood's players as well. So let's go. Bear with me. Show all. All right, let's share the screen. Okay. All right, so we're looking at the medium-sized defenders, yeah? How many of you knew this, right? So we look at Nick Vlaston, right? Great key position player, plays taller than his size. Marty Hall only played 6 games, so let me just change that. Let's say the prerequisite is you would have had to have played at least 10 games. So 10 games to 26. All right. So look at these players that we're looking at here. Nick Vlaston, Nathan Broad, Tom Stewart, all great defenders. Will Powell, great defender. Zach Guthrie, great defender. Mason Redmond, Nick Blakey, Mitch McGovern, Luke Ryan, Harry Himmelberg, Jarman Impey. And then you got Dan Houston averaging 1.6 intercept marks per game, right? How good is that to have that type of player? Let's measure him Let's have a look here. Player filters. Let's go. Let's look at Collingwood. So Dan Houston, guys, read them out to me, yeah? Dan Houston, Charlie Dean, Darcy Moore, Howe, Quaynor, Frampton, Maynard. Am I missing anyone else? Who else is in the conversation here? Charlie Dean, Billy Frampton, Darcy Moore, Jeremy Howe, Braden Maynard, Isaac Quaynor, and heck, because this is supposed to be a like for like, John Noble. So Dan Houston averaged the same amount of intercept marks as Billy Frampton. Granted, Billy Frampton plays more one-on-one. I understand that. Braden Maynard, who would play loose generally, right? Because he goes both ways, back defensively and forward. Isaac Quaynor, 1 intercept mark. John Noble, 0.7 intercept marks. I forgot another player. Markov, 0.4. Look at that. Look what you're getting. Yeah? John Noble, 0.7. Dan Houston, 1.6. Not far off Jeremy Howe and not far off Darcy Moore. What do you think about that? Let's see. What are we saying? We're not there yet. We're nearly there, Chris. Will Parker probably wouldn't put it in that category. All right, let's see anything else on Twitter, guys. That's about it. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to repeat what I've been saying. Thank you guys once again for joining the stream. If you're just tuning in, just watch from the start. We cover everything that you need to know regarding the developments of today. Some positive news and positive outcomes for Collingwood. We're probably going to see this extend out to tomorrow, probably even Wednesday. Definitely when it comes to at least Tomlinson and Jack Hayes. And yeah, we'll see you then. Thank you guys for joining. 200 plus viewers right now. Unbelievable. We'll see you tomorrow. Go Pies.